would be rough, though.
Hello! Today we're doing a nice live chat. I have special guest Brandy Potter with me. Say hi, Brandy.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so we're just going to do a little discussion about book blogging. Okay, now this is a topic which comes up a lot, and it's something that I am very strongly connected with because I'm an author, but I am also a book blogger. And I know there are a lot of other authors out there that also do book blogging because obviously we have the passion for books and things. So today, me and Brandy are just going to have a little chat about different things that you might want to consider when looking at the whole book blogging thing. Okay, so Brandy, start off a little bit. Just tell us a little bit about you and your site. Where do you do your book blogging from?
I actually do my book blogging from a site called Written By. It's a book review, author interview, and reader and writer education site. And that's actually out on the web. You should be able to find a link on my Facebook page.
Okay, excellent. Now, just to get us started, let's talk a little bit about what book blogging is, because maybe there's people out there who don't know this. There's a whole huge book blogging community, which is basically made up of readers who are passionate about their books and want to share about the books that they read or want to read or have read with other people as well. Okay, now these are actually really powerful networks and an amazing tool for authors who want to get the word out about their books. Now, as a book blogger, what kind of posts do you sort of put together? Because obviously book blogging goes much further than just doing book reviews.
Well, you obviously want to do book reviews, but you also want to introduce readers to new writers. And the way to do that, to kind of connect them together, I have found is to do, the quirky answer 10 random questions interviews, to kind of get the author out of their business casual, I'm just going to sit here, not show you my personality and my brand. But you also want to give the readers a chance to kind of express what types of brands they like. If somebody's got an over-the-top brand, that might not connect with a whole lot of people. So for me, a lot of it is having readers post what they do and don't like, having writers post stuff about their brands. But, what are the kind of things that you like to share on your book blog?
Well, I'm part of groups of book bloggers and things as well. So we get quite a variety of post ideas between us. Obviously, we're doing the book reviews. Within the whole book blogging market, because you've also got BookTube, obviously, in that as well. So the videos, there's a whole different community there as well. So it's not just written text on your blogs and things, but there's a lot of book tags, for example, where the book blogger will mention books in their answers. So you'd have, a question of, what's your favorite thriller? Or can you suggest, 3 romance novels that have really strong female leads or whatever? And there's all these different tags that you can find. Obviously, BookTube is very rich in these kind of book tags and things, but there are lots of blogging versions as well where you can do the written answers for them. And so that's a nice opportunity for the book blogger to talk about lots of different books in the same post. It also means that they don't have to go into too much detail about each of the books and things. You're kind of name dropping in it, which is also great though for the authors, because if they're getting mentioned in that, then they're still going to show up, for SEO and things. They're still going to be showing up all over the place and potentially getting good backlinks as well for their books, so their sales pages, but also their author websites and things as well. That's another thing that can be done. Author interviews, like you said. But there's lots of other things that can be done, like roundup posts and list posts and things. They're popular across blogging, like in general. And I think there's actually a huge number of really creative bloggers out there now. And it's actually really inspiring, both as a book blogger and as an author, because it, as an author, it gives, you know, all these new options that maybe I hadn't thought about, because when you're an author, you're sort of thinking your standard interview, review, that kind of thing. But there's so much more that can be done, you know, with just a little bit of imagination and things.
Absolutely. And I think that vlogging is taking a whole new approach to this as well. Like you said, BookTube, having everybody out there talking about what their favorite characters are, their favorite romance novels, you know, and then going to Twitter to expand the book blog universe by throwing out favorite quotes. What's your favorite author quote? You know, who's your favorite heroine? All those kind of things. Those are great. But you also want to do things like, what don't you like? Because authors are there and they're reading, you know, and you've got new authors and they're going to write, you know, the next Twilight, and everybody's going to go, yeah, please don't make your vampire sparkle. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. You've got to give, it's kind of a give and take. It's a connect, you know, you've got to connect the authors to the readers and the readers to the authors. And another good thing that's coming out that needs to be put out there on these book blogs are people's book trailers. Book trailers are coming up big time, and that also is kind of exciting for your for readers on book blogs too, is to kind of look at what's coming out. I mean, James Patterson is boring with his book trailers, but he gets the word out, you know what I mean? And people would pay more attention to that.
That is very true. In fact, I don't think that authors are really using book trailers enough, because I think they can have a really high impact, especially on book blogs, because also it breaks it up. Having this mixed media element to blog posts is something that can help the readers connect and things as well. And it gives them that little bit of extra about the books and things as well. So like now, whether it's you're embedding a YouTube video as a book trailer, or if you're doing a book review as a video, or maybe you're embedding like social media posts. You know, if you've been chatting about books and things on Twitter, you can, you know, embed that thread or a Facebook post or whatever, your Instagram, you know, it really goes across the board. But having all those different kind of options really makes it so much more interesting for a reader to, you know, do it, and then discovering so much more about the books and the authors that way, because, you know, personality and things comes across a lot more that way as well. And also it's more memorable when you mix up the different media. Like if you're just reading a simple text page, then, you know, you'd switch off maybe before you even finish it. It would have to be really interesting text to be able to hold your attention. Whereas if there's images and there's video or maybe some audio or some other kind of interactive element to the post, then that's going to pull you in a lot more as well. And book bloggers are actually getting really, really good with like that technology element to doing it. But just now, I just want to circle back, because you said something earlier that was very interesting. The fact about, you know, embracing the negativity as well, because there is a lot of discussion that happens on Goodreads and other channels as well about negative book bloggers. And whilst I am against negativity, you know, I don't want to go out and slam anyone, but sometimes having those, they're more like discussion pieces, you know, where you're weighing up the pros and cons of different things. So whether that's, for example, in a book review, I'm totally fine with a book review that is a 3-star or whatever, that weighs up both negative and positive aspects of the book. In fact, I think they're much more valuable than, you know, a 5-star or a 1-star or whatever, because it's more balanced and it gives a much clearer picture of what the book's about and things. But the same thing applies to discussions that you have on them as well. And I know that you had a particular post on your own blog where you were sort of weighing up an argument, the various different sides of the argument and things, and that went down really well with readers as well, because it's something that they can connect to regardless of which side of the fence that they're on. So you just sort of tell us a little bit more about that. What was the post about?
So we have, in writing, as with any art, you have extremes. You're not going to get away from it. And we have folks that are very opinionated, and they were attacking other writers for their genre. I'll just put out there, we're attacking writers for erotica. Okay. And these are more conservative authors. And so I kind of did a to cuss or not to cuss, to have sex scenes or not to have sex scenes, to say or to not to say discussion on my blog post. And it was very well received. You know, I basically said, this is how this goes down. If you write young adult novels, you obviously don't want to have 50 Shades of Grey coming in. But if you are writing an adult novel, everything's on, unless you're in the more conservative genres. But if you're not writing erotica and you're trying to target the mainstream, I know for me, when I read erotica, I just feel uncomfortable. I have nothing against erotica. I can do book reviews for erotica, but I'm going to skip the scenes. You know, I'm going to get about 2 paragraphs in and go, okay, I'm done. But that doesn't mean I don't like them. And it doesn't mean the authors are less talented. Art is subjective. Writing is subjective. But I think what people need to understand, and I think they forget, because we are all artists, and now I'm putting on my HR hat, writing is a business. You know what I mean? And you can't forget your marketing. You can't forget to connect with your consumers. You can't forget to know your competition. And so I'm circling back to, there's people on Goodreads that don't like negative posts. That's true. But there's a difference between negativity and constructive criticism. And there's a difference between, I like this, I don't like that. And I think that authors need to pay attention to the trends in their community. They need, like you said, they're not using book trailers effectively. They're not using all the social media, they can effectively. I had a gentleman that I was talking to the other day on the street who's an author, and he's like, well, I'm not getting on all those social media sites. And I said, well, what genre do you write in? And he says, young adult. And I said, well, then you're not going to sell anything, because they're on Kick, they're on this, they're on this, they're on this. And the only way you're going to get to find out all those trends is to do or participate in book blogging, because that's where readers and authors both are.
Definitely. And a large amount of the book blogging community is actually, the younger, you're under 30s. It's that kind of, I mean, there are older book bloggers and things as well, but there is a huge, the whole community thing. A lot of them are students and things like that are doing it because they're passionate about reading and things like that. So if that is the market, then yes, you should definitely be looking into social media and book blogging and things a whole lot more. I also think that, like, as you were saying, with the whole negativity and understanding your genres and things like that as well, I think it's important that authors are very clear about who their book is for, what it contains. Because I've seen a lot of reviews, for example, on book blogger sites and things that they're not biased because of it or whatever, but they will comment on the fact that, they weren't expecting to find, that steamier sex scene or whatever in that kind of romance. They were expecting, just very sort of subtle hints at or whatever. And that was a big turnoff because not everyone likes that kind of stuff. And I think it's the thing about, you know, helping readers discover the right books for them. And that works both in the advantage of the reader, obviously, but also from the author, because you want to get your book in front of the right people. And so having these clear information when you're doing your book descriptions and things for Amazon or wherever, when you're doing your marketing for the books and you're reaching out to book bloggers and things, you need to be very specific about the kind of content that your book contains. So if it contains violence or sex scenes or, you know, maybe it uses strong language, those kind of trigger things are really important that you mention them when you do it. And another thing, whilst we're talking about this, I also saw there's been a lot of discussion, obviously, in recent times, the whole mental health discussion has come up across the board a lot,
Yes.
which very good thing. But this also, I've noticed now a lot of book bloggers and things, when they're doing their reviews and their book hauls and things, they're mentioning, for example, they've read a book or whatever, and it totally set them off because they have a particular issue or whatever, which was discussed in the book, but they weren't prepared to be faced with that material. So I also think it's very important that you're very clear about if it has any triggers in the book and things as well. Yesterday I was chatting to someone about this who'd read a book and huge animal lover and things. Totally wasn't expecting. There was a dog who was I've not read the book, but apparently quite an important character in the book for the most part, and then the dog gets killed at the end, and it just like totally, she couldn't finish the book, and the book was really good up to that point, but it would just like turn her because she was so not expecting it, and it was one of those big triggers for her. So I think it's also very important that there's that communication as well, and I think that would help both authors and readers, and so ultimately the book bloggers as well, who are in the middle obviously of this communication train, that they can get the right information to the right people.
I absolutely agree. And, you know, to get out of cliches and stereotypes and trying to come up with a character. Okay, so I'm totally a survivor of domestic violence. I will never say I'm a victim, but I do have PTSD. And so in Venomous Lives, there's 3 or 4 scenes where I'm using domestic violence in there. And one of them is really, really, really specific. I don't know how I could have put out there that there was a trigger, but if you read a book review or you talk about, you know, you have your readers on your book blog saying, yeah, and she threw this scene in and it really hit a chord and it can bring closure. I mean, in my promo day thing, I actually said one of the needs of the readers can be closure based on, you know, what you're writing. But I think another opportunity building on that is, for example, if you're going to put in a transsexual into your novel, book blogs are a good way to say, hey, are there any people in the process of changing? Can I have an interview with you privately, so that you're not writing the stereotypes, the cliches, that you're understanding, you know, all this stuff, because we're in a more accepting world, but we don't always understand everything. You know, Americans think Muslims are one way, but they're not. And well, not all of them are. And not all of the Italians from New York are in the mafia. And, you know, not every Italian is, you know, over the top, speaks with their hands, you know what I mean? And, you know, not every German drinks beer and shouts all the time. And they do have senses of humor, but people don't, you know, to try to understand what stereotypes are going to trigger a quote unquote prejudicial reaction to your book is another thing. So, you know, you could go out on your book blog and be like, hey, let's talk about stereotypes in books. What's, you know, what's good, what's bad, what's you know, if you're doing a cardboard cutout character, is it okay to do this? But if you're doing like a MC or a supporting character, do you need to do it another way? And so that, again, you have to allow the negativity in, but it's constructive criticism. And I think another point that I want to make, you know, putting my HR and workforce development hat on, is that we teach a class on what's called suitability. When you go to work, you dress for work. If you work at a restaurant, you're typically wearing slacks and a button-down shirt. If you work at an office, you're wearing business clothes. You're writing a certain way in your emails. You're, you know, representing in the way that you present yourself. And I think that to try to understand your brand and to build your suitability and to understand what other people are looking for in an author so that you can build your brand to that suitability, book blogging is key, because you've got writers, you've got readers, you've got people that are just in the industry all coming together to share ideas.
Definitely. Now, just one more thing before we close this up, because obviously talking about book blogs and everything, one of the big things that comes out is virtual book tours and guest blogging and things like that as well. Now, obviously, I'm a huge fan of virtual book tours. For me personally, it's been one of probably my most successful marketing strategy, if you like. I also, when I'm doing guest posts on other people's blogs and things, I get good results from doing that. It's also a really enjoyable experience because you're reaching a whole different audience from your usual one with your own blog and things like that, but also hosting other people on your own blog as well. That brings, you know, other people with them as well, because obviously if someone is hosted on your blog, then they're going to be promoting their participation on your blog and helping spread the word and things as well as obviously the SEO elements of getting those quality backlinks and things like that as well. But just to cover up on this, like, as a book blogger, is there like do you have a checklist? How important is it that authors read the guidelines that you put on site? I mean, for me personally, I have a huge problem with people through my writersandauthors.info website. I host a lot of people over there, and I have very specific submission guidelines for hosting people. I only do certain posts on certain days. I have a set kind of setup for certain posts and things like that. I'm busy and I don't have time to go in and edit every post that comes to me and things like that as well. And a lot of other book bloggers have the same issue. They're short on time because a lot of them are doing it as a side hobby. You know, it's not their full-time job. And so they have to sort of work it around their schedule. And so if they put guidelines up on their blog, they want the authors to follow those guidelines to it. And each one will have their own system. The same for their review policy and things like that as well. So from that point of view, I mean, do you have any tips or anything? Because obviously you host people on your site, but you've also been hosted on other people's sites and things as well. So like myself, you know, the two sides of the penny here. So any tips or anything, any particular things, for example, you look for when you're hosting people on your site? You know, any suggestions for how, you know, authors can have a more successful visit to your site, things they should bear in mind when approaching you for being featured on your site, things like that? Any tips that you can give?
I have 3 topics that I never discuss. I violated one of them yesterday, but I have 3 topics that I never discuss. I don't discuss politics, I don't discuss religion, and I don't discuss sports. And I think that everybody that is going out to somebody else's site needs to keep those in mind, because those are the 3 things that are going to set somebody off all the time. Because not everybody likes Liverpool, and not everybody likes the Packers, and not everybody is Christian, and not everybody is Wiccan, and you're going to set everybody off. So you steer clear of those 3 topics. But the other thing that you have to remember as a guest blogger is you're a guest. When you go to somebody's house to visit, you follow their rules. If you are a smoker and they don't smoke, you go outside. You don't question it. So if you are guest blogging on, let's say, a Christian book author's site, and you're not going to talk about, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You're not going to cuss. You're not going to do this and that. And for me on mine, I'm really laid back. I flow, but I tend to stay away from the cuss words. I don't like the controversial topics. And it's just because I'm obviously trying to appeal to the greatest audience on the book blog. But for the most part, you got to consider that you're a guest in somebody's home when you're blogging. And I think if you take that with you, you can represent your brands, even if you're an erotica artist, even if you're somebody, I can't think of his name right now, Hunter S. Thompson. Even if you're Hunter S. Thompson, you can go to somebody else's blog and represent your brand, but do it in a way that it can be broadcast on NBC television. I mean, the man did do interviews and they were on television, so.
Definitely. You really do need to keep in mind who your audience is when you're doing these things. Definitely. That is very solid advice. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap this up now. Just before we go, if you want to just tell us a little bit more, very, very quickly, about your own books and your own website and things, just to, finish us off here, or the information.
So the published work that I have out now is called Venomous Lives. It is a drama romance set in the 80s glam rock era. So just being 100 with everybody, sex, drugs, rock and roll, like we were saying, setting up triggers. And then I am currently working on a paranormal crime romance with a ghost hunting group that's going to end up being a series. And I'm also working on a very dark mafia series. So that should be interesting. I haven't really decided if that's going to be a series or a standalone book. I have a problem letting go of my characters, though. So I think I've kind of decided that series is the way I'm going. But those are what I'm working on now. Venomous Lives, you can get it on Amazon. You can get a print copy if you want it. It's available on Kindle, but I've also allowed it out on the library. So please go out and get it for free at the library if you can. And then I've kind of taken down brandypotterbooks.com right now due to health concerns with the family, but it will be back. And it's going to be my book blog platform, but Written By is out there. I do reviews once a month, or I try to. So go out to my Facebook page, click there, and check that out too.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'm going to link below in this video anyway, all of Brandy's links and things, so that you can find her on her Facebook page and everything else there. So go check those out and say hi. And yeah, so that's it for today. This has been really good. We have covered so much in such a short space of time. As always, lovely chatting with you, Brandy.
Absolutely.
All the best for your upcoming projects and things as well. And yeah, go people, go check her out. She's awesome. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, Joe.